There comes a moment when you feel the air in the room shift, not because of what was said, but because of what it meant. Someone throws a comment across the table, a jab hidden in a joke, a remark that seems casual but lands sharp. And for a second, all eyes move to you, not to the speaker, not to the joke, but to your face, your reaction, your body. This is the silent test, the one that separates those who hold power from those who hand it away. It is never about the words themselves. It is about whether you flinch, whether you twitch, whether you try to prove something, because people do not measure you by your explanations. They measure you by your control. Most people fail this test without even knowing it. They rush to clarify, to say, "I didn't mean it like that," or "You've misunderstood." They think they are saving face, but in truth, they are lowering themselves. Because the moment you explain, you admit the other person has the right to judge you. You are saying, "Yes, your words matter enough for me to bend myself into defense," and the crowd watching sees it instantly. They may not even realize they see it. But the impression is sealed. You were touched, you were rattled, you were weakened. The real game lies in restraint, because the test is never about truth, it is about perception. The person throwing shade doesn't care if you are actually arrogant, cold, selfish, fake. They want to see if they can make you break your stillness. They want to watch you move, because the one who moves first often loses. They gamble that your pride will drag you into speech. But if you know the game, you realize the true response is not to play. You stay still. You let the words float, you let the silence grow heavy. And in that moment, something happens. The crowd begins to wonder, why didn't you react? What do you know that they don't? Maybe you're above this. Maybe the jab was smaller than it seemed. Maybe the one who spoke looks insecure now, because your stillness turned their attack into a mirror that reflects their own weakness. The test is silent, but its outcome is loud. When you hold your calm, the accuser starts to fidget. They repeat themselves, they laugh too hard at their own line. They look around for support that does not come. The people who were waiting for your defense now see something else. They see you as untouchable, as someone who does not need to explain, and in that shift, the power moves. It leaves the attacker and lands in your hands, not because you fought for it, but because you didn't. Every person who wants power will face this moment, sometimes at work, sometimes in a relationship, sometimes among friends, and each time the temptation will be to explain, to defend, to prove. But if you can resist that urge, if you can pass the test quietly, you will find that you do not just win the moment, you win something bigger. You create an aura, a presence, a myth that says you cannot be rattled, and that is worth more than any defense you could ever give. Weakness is often misunderstood. People think it shows itself only when you are wrong or when you have made a mistake, but the truth is far sharper. Weakness shows itself the moment you look rattled, the moment you break your own stillness. Every sigh, every nervous laugh, every quick explanation is a signal that you have been touched. And once people see that, the test is already lost. They don't care about the details of what was said. They care about the performance of your composure, because power is never about facts. It is about perception. Think about the last time you saw someone defend themselves too quickly. Maybe they jumped in with words before anyone asked. Maybe they over-explained. Maybe they repeated themselves, trying to sound convincing. Did you believe them more? Or did you feel they had something to hide? Most people don't realize it. But the more you defend, the more guilty you look. The very act of proving yourself creates the impression that you needed to, and that impression is poison, because once others sense you are shaken, they will test you again and again until you fold. Weakness is performance. It is not about who you are inside. It is about what others see when you are under pressure. The sigh that escapes your mouth tells them you are tired. The rush of words tells them you are desperate. The shift in your tone tells them they landed a blow, and the more you try to fix it, the deeper the hole becomes. It is like water spilling on the floor. The more you wipe in panic, the more you spread it around. Calm is what stops the spill. Silence is what seals the space, but weakness never knows how to wait. It only knows how to react. In any room, people are not watching for truth. They are watching for signs, signs of confidence, signs of fear, signs of control. When you appear rattled, you hand them the map of your own insecurities, and once they know where the cracks are, they push harder. Some push out of cruelty, others out of curiosity. But the result is the same. You are no longer in control. You are performing weakness for the room, even if your words are reasonable. Even if you are right, it doesn't matter, because rightness is not what convinces people. Presence does. The strongest people understand this game. They know that the moment someone attacks them, the real battle isn't over truth, it's over image, and they refuse to give their opponent the satisfaction of seeing them flinch. They don't rush to answer. They don't rush to clean their name. They know that innocence explained looks like guilt, but calm silence looks like strength, and the crowd, always searching for cues, takes their side without even realizing it, because people trust the one who looks unshaken, and doubt the one who looks desperate to be believed. This is why weakness is performance. It is not who you are, it is how you act under pressure. The more still you remain, the stronger you seem. The more you react, the weaker you look. And the world will always treat you as you appear, not as you are inside. Defending yourself feels like the right thing to do. It feels noble, it feels fair. It feels like the way to set the record straight. When someone questions you or throws an insult, your instinct is to clear your name, to explain what really happened, to make sure no one misunderstands you. But here is the truth that few ever learn. The moment you defend yourself, you are no longer in control. You have stepped onto their field. You have agreed to play their game, and once you do that, you are already behind. Think about what happens when someone calls you arrogant or selfish. The first words that want to escape your mouth are, "No, you don't understand. I am not like that." But as soon as those words come out, you have accepted the frame they built. They have labeled you, and you have agreed that the label is worth debating. The conversation is no longer about them overstepping. It is now about you trying to prove innocence. And innocence is a losing position, because it always sounds defensive. It always sounds like you are explaining why you are not guilty, and guilty or not, you still look weaker for trying. This is the trap most people fall into every day. They think if they just explain enough, repeat enough, clarify enough, people will see the truth. But people don't see the truth. They see the performance. They see one person calm and accusing, and the other restless and explaining. And they draw the conclusion without even thinking. The calm one must be right. The defensive one must be hiding something. In that instant, the test is lost, not because you were wrong, but because you gave away the frame. Every defense gives power to the attacker. It tells them their words were strong enough to pull you out of your calm. It tells the audience that their accusation had weight. It tells the room that you can be shaken, and the more you explain, the more the frame tightens around you like a net. It doesn't matter how pure your words are. They will be heard as excuses. They will be taken as proof that the jab landed, that the insult stuck. Because if it didn't, why would you be explaining at all? This is the brutal logic of perception. The logic Machiavelli understood long before psychology put it in books. The way out is not found in better words, it is found in no words. Silence is not weakness, it is control. Stillness is not emptiness, it is power. When you refuse to defend, you refuse to validate the frame, you refuse to step onto their field, and in doing so, you flip the balance. Suddenly the accuser looks emotional. Suddenly the jab looks desperate. Suddenly the crowd wonders why you are so calm, and the doubt shifts onto them. Not you, because people do not trust the frantic. They trust the composed. They do not follow the one who explains. They follow the one who doesn't need to. This is why defending yourself is always a trap. It feels like clarity, but it is really surrender. The moment you fight to be understood, you have already lost control of how you are seen. And in the game of power, how you are seen is everything. Stillness is one of the oldest forms of power, yet few people ever master it. When most are attacked, they scramble. They rush to fill the space with explanations and clarifications. They think that words will protect them, but words are fragile. They can be twisted, ignored, or used against you. What cannot be twisted is the silence of someone who refuses to move. The person who stays calm, still unshaken, projects a strength that no argument can equal, because what can truly be attacked if it does not move? When you hold still under fire, the room changes. At first, everyone expects you to defend yourself. They wait for the excuses, the counterattack, the usual back and forth. But when none of that comes, something different happens. The focus shifts. The attacker, who thought they had the upper hand, starts to feel the weight of their own words. Silence is heavy. It makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to wonder if they miscalculated, if they have revealed too much of their own insecurity. If they look petty now, and while they wrestle with that, you have not lifted a finger. You have not wasted a single breath. You are covered in armor they cannot penetrate. Stillness is armor because it denies the enemy what they need most. Reaction without reaction, their weapon is useless. A jab thrown into silence echoes back on the one who threw it. A provocation ignored makes the provocateur look small. And the longer you remain calm, the clearer the imbalance becomes. They are sweating. They are talking more. They are repeating themselves, trying to make the blow land. But the crowd is no longer watching you. They are watching the attacker unravel. They are seeing who controls the space, and they know it is not the loud one, it is the still one. People mistake stillness for weakness because they think power is about noise, about being louder, faster, more aggressive. But true power is quiet. It does not need to prove itself. It does not need to be seen defending itself. It does not even need to explain. The powerful let silence burn because they know silence makes others reveal themselves. It forces words out of them. It exposes cracks in their confidence. And every second you do not move is another second they lose control. In life you will face countless moments when someone tests you, at work, in relationships, in public, and in each of those moments you will feel the pull to explain, to clear the record, to make sure no one doubts you. But if you can hold still, if you can sit inside the silence without flinching, you will notice the shift. Their confidence shrinks while yours expands. Their attack fades while your presence grows, and everyone watching learns the same lesson. You cannot be rattled. Stillness is not emptiness. It is not passivity. It is strategy. It is armor that protects without moving. It is strength that multiplies in silence, and the longer you can stay calm, the faster the attacker will fold. Because nothing burns a person faster than realizing they cannot touch you. The strange thing about power is that it is never just about what is said. It is about how the room sees it the moment someone takes a shot at you. The assumption is that you are now on trial. Their words are the accusation and you are supposed to defend. That is the frame they set. You are supposed to scramble while they stand calm. But the second you stay still and refuse to move, something begins to flip their test. No longer exposes you. It exposes them. The silence becomes a mirror, and instead of proving your weakness, it starts to show theirs. When you do not rush to defend yourself, the attacker loses their rhythm. They expected pushback. They expected you to play along. But without your reaction, their words hang in the air too long. Everyone hears them echo, and instead of looking sharp, they start to sound bitter. Instead of looking confident, they start to look over-eager. The jab that was supposed to make you small begins to make them look unstable. The room sees it even if no one says it out loud. The shift has begun. Power is never about who talks more. It is about who controls the frame. The frame is the unspoken story underneath the words, and when you defend yourself, you agree to their story. You make their version the one everyone listens to. But when you stay calm, you write a different story without speaking a word. Suddenly the frame is not that you are guilty. It is that they are insecure, not that you are weak, but that they are emotional. The crowd begins to question them instead of you, and once that doubt takes root, it grows quickly. The reason this works is because people judge not by facts but by composure. They are not keeping score of who is right or wrong. They are watching who looks in control. When you do not flinch, you look unshakable when they keep pressing. They look desperate. It is the same in business meetings, in family arguments, even in public disputes. The one who stays calm creates the higher ground. The one who pushes harder creates the sense that they are the one losing balance. This is how the frame flips, and it flips faster than most realize. Think about a time when someone made a joke at another person's expense. At first the room laughed, but then the target did not react. Maybe they just smiled faintly. Maybe they sat in silence. What happened next? The laughter started to fade. People looked at the one who made the joke, and suddenly the energy shifted. Now the aggressor looked awkward, too loud, out of place. And the person who said nothing seemed stronger. That is the frame flipping in real time. It happens because calmness forces everyone else to reevaluate what they just saw. The truth is, the test was never about whether you are guilty or innocent. It was always about whether you could hold your presence if you pass. You don't just survive the moment. You gain more than you had before, because the crowd is no longer judging you. They are judging the one who could not shake you. And once that shift happens, your power multiplies without you having to lift a single word. Mystery is one of the strongest forms of leverage you can ever hold, because when you do not react, people are forced to fill the silence with their own imagination, and imagination always paints in bigger colors than reality. They begin to whisper, maybe you know something they don't. Maybe you are too high above to care. Maybe you are waiting for the right moment to strike. Whatever story they build in their mind, it almost always makes you appear stronger than if you had explained yourself with plain words. The reason this works is simple. People hate gaps. The human mind cannot stand an empty space when something is left unsaid. The brain rushes to complete it, but it does not complete it with the truth. It completes it with guesses, and those guesses are usually shaped by fear, doubt, or respect. When you stay silent, you let those guesses inflate your image. Silence forces people to see you not as you are, but as they think you are. And that distance is where power grows, because mystery magnifies presence in ways no speech ever can. Imagine someone insults you in a meeting. They expect you to defend yourself, but instead you stay calm. You let the words sit in the air, and you give no reaction. What happens? The others in the room start to wonder, why didn't you respond? Is it because you don't care? Is it because you know the insult is beneath you? Is it because you already have evidence that will prove you right? Later, the truth could be simple. Maybe you just didn't feel like wasting words, but to them it looks calculated. It looks powerful, and the more they think about it, the more powerful you appear. Mystery works because people rarely imagine you as smaller than you are. They usually imagine you as larger, stronger, more dangerous. When someone does not react, they look like they are holding cards that no one else can see. They look like they are 5 steps ahead. They look like they are so confident that no attack can touch them. And even if none of that is true, perception makes it real. Because power in the eyes of others is not about proof, it is about belief. And mystery feeds belief like fire feeds smoke. You can see this in history. The figures who held silence well were feared the most. Not because of what they said, but because of what they might say. People assumed they knew secrets. People assumed they had control. People assumed they were untouchable. And those assumptions gave them influence far beyond their actual words. You can use the same effect in your own life, by refusing to rush, refusing to explain, refusing to fill every silence. You let others do the work of building your image for you, and most of the time, they will build it far bigger than you could ever describe yourself. This is why mystery is leverage. When you let others invent reasons for your calm, you gain more than clarity could ever give. Explanations shrink you. Mystery expands you. And in every room, the one who says less always seems to hold more, because imagination will always exaggerate. And in the game of power, exaggeration works in your favor. The moment you refuse to react is the moment the balance begins to shift. The attacker came at you expecting a fight. They were sure you would explain yourself, defend yourself, prove yourself. But when you do not give them what they want, the silence becomes unbearable for them. They feel exposed because their attack is hanging in the air with nowhere to land. So they do the only thing they know. They push harder. They repeat themselves. They escalate. They add more words, more emotion, more energy, thinking that if they keep pressing, eventually you will break. But the more they do this, the weaker they begin to look. People do not notice how desperate they sound when they keep circling the same insult, but everyone else does. The crowd is watching. And at first it might have seemed like a sharp jab, but the longer it goes on, the more it turns into noise. The accuser looks emotional. They look obsessed. They look like they need you to react in order to validate themselves, while you remain calm and still showing none of the weight they are trying to put on you. And in that contrast, the collapse begins. The attacker folds not because you fought back, but because they cannot hold the stage alone. Their words were designed to spark a reaction. Without your reaction, their energy has nowhere to go, so it starts to rebound on them. They grow louder, their tone sharpens, their body language tightens, and what was supposed to make you look weak now makes them look unstable. The audience no longer sees someone in control. They see someone losing it. They see someone exposing their own insecurity for everyone to witness. This is the secret that few understand. Silence is not just absence, it is pressure. When you remain calm, you place the weight of the moment entirely on the other person. They feel it pressing on them with every second you don't respond. They wonder why you are so calm. They wonder what you are thinking. They wonder if they have gone too far. Doubt creeps into their mind, and doubt is poison for anyone trying to look strong. The more they doubt, the weaker their voice becomes, even if they try to hide it. Soon the room shifts. At first the crowd might have leaned toward the one who spoke boldly, but now they lean toward you, because you never flinched, you never scrambled, you never lost yourself. While the accuser looks smaller with every extra word, the audience sees them unravel, sees them sweat, sees them lose the very control they tried to take from you. And without realizing it, the accuser has put themselves on trial. They are now the one being judged, not you, because people always side with the one who looks composed over the one who looks frantic. The collapse of the accuser happens quietly. They do not even see it until it is too late. They thought they could expose you, but they exposed themselves. They thought they could control the frame, but your stillness flipped it, and in the end their aggression folded under its own weight, while your silence became the proof of strength. When you pass the test of silence, something bigger than the moment takes shape. It is no longer about winning a single exchange. It is about building an image that others carry with them long after the words have faded. Passing the test does not just protect you from looking weak. It creates a presence around you, an aura that people can feel even when you are not speaking, the aura of untouchability. This aura is built through consistency. Once people see you hold your calm under attack, they start to remember it. The next time a jab is thrown your way, they already expect you will not flinch, and that expectation alone changes the way they treat you. The very thought of testing you feels risky, because in their minds they replay what happened to the last person who tried. They recall how the attacker ended up looking desperate and small while you sat still and unshaken. And no one wants to play the fool twice. So slowly the tests decrease, not because people like you more, but because they respect what you cannot be shaken by. The aura of untouchability does not mean people stop talking about you. In fact, they may whisper more, but whispers are harmless when they never see you react. What matters is how you carry yourself in the open, because public silence has more power than private noise. When you stand still in the face of shade or criticism, the crowd takes note. They see that you cannot be rattled, and over time that observation turns into belief. Belief that you are on a different level. Belief that you do not need to fight for your place. Belief that you cannot be pulled down by petty games. What makes this aura so powerful is that it is self-reinforcing. Once people see you as untouchable, they begin to handle you differently. They hesitate before taking shots. They hesitate before questioning you openly, because they fear that same silence, that same mirror, that same collapse of the last accuser, and in that hesitation your position grows stronger. Without lifting a finger, you have created an invisible shield. People test you less. People doubt you less. And when they do think about challenging you, they remember what happened before and often choose another target. The aura of untouchability is not arrogance. It is not walking around believing you are above everyone. It is the quiet certainty that you do not need to defend yourself, and that certainty radiates outward. People can feel it in the way you hold your body, in the calmness of your tone, in the way you let silence stretch without fear. The powerful never rush, and because they never rush, people assume they must know something deeper. They must have a strength others cannot see, and that assumption alone multiplies their influence. This is why passing the test is more than a single victory. It is the foundation of reputation, the kind of reputation that keeps enemies cautious and allies loyal. Because when people believe you cannot be rattled, they begin to see you not just as strong, but as untouchable, and that perception is worth more than any defense you could ever give. The final stage of power is not about learning how to defend yourself better. It is not about mastering clever replies or sharp comebacks. It is about reaching a place where you no longer need to defend at all. When you pass tests quietly enough times, the room begins to shift before words are even spoken. People remember your stillness. They remember how every attempt to rattle you ended with the attacker collapsing under their own weight, and slowly they stop testing you. Not because they think you are flawless, but because they believe the test itself will backfire. This is the final evolution, when your authority becomes effortless. Power never comes from proving yourself. It comes from not needing to. The moment you show that you can stay calm under fire, that you can hold silence without fear, you create an expectation in the minds of others. They begin to treat you as someone who cannot be shaken, and that treatment builds a shield stronger than any defense you could ever craft. People hesitate before taking a shot, because they have already decided the outcome. They assume you will not flinch. They assume they will be the one to look foolish, so they fold before the test even begins. That is when you know you have crossed into a new level of presence. What makes this state so powerful is how natural it looks. You are not straining to hold composure. You are not forcing silence as a tactic. It becomes who you are. Your calm is not an act. It is your default, and when calm becomes your default, others sense it instantly. They cannot imagine you being rattled. They cannot picture you scrambling for words. They see you as someone who is always in control, and perception is everything. The more untouchable you appear, the less anyone dares to try and touch you. At this level, even your absence speaks. When you choose not to reply, people assume there is a reason. When you choose not to engage people, assume it is strength. When you walk into a room, you do not need to speak first. You do not need to announce yourself. Your presence is enough because reputation has already done the work for you. Reputation built on silence, restraint, and the refusal to explain. Every moment you did not react was a stone placed in a fortress, and now that fortress surrounds you without you lifting a hand. The final evolution is aura. It is the invisible weight that follows you, the unspoken warning that lingers in people's minds. They do not see you as perfect, but they see you as someone beyond petty games, someone who cannot be dragged into arguments, someone who will never waste energy proving what is already known. And that makes them cautious. Cautious with their words, cautious with their challenges, cautious with how they approach you, because they know that silence is your weapon, and silence always flips the frame. This is the highest point of self-control, where authority flows not from noise but from restraint, where you no longer chase respect, you command it without trying, where you no longer fight to win, because the fight never even begins. The room folds in your favor, the crowd leans to your side. And in that silence, your power is no longer a performance. It has become presence, and presence is the final evolution. Maybe this video helped you see yourself, or someone you know in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments. And if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.